think this is the first public presentation for San Marco, even though we've been around for about 5 years. We initially started San Marco with a group of seasoned veterans, explorationists, mining guys, financial. And I have to go back and tell this story. It's many, many years ago, early in my career. I was negotiating the purchase of the Stibnite gold mine in Idaho from a group. And there was a fellow on the other side of the table who was the legal counsel, who I didn't know at that point in time, seemed like a pretty reasonable guy. Well, it turned out to be Tuki Angus, who is the single largest shareholder of San Marco and is our chairman and has been for 5 years since we started the company. Once we started San Marco, we decided that we would focus on the state of Sonora, Mexico. We feel that that's one of the best mineral endowed areas in the world. There are numerous producing mines that are very profitable, gold, copper, as we all know. So over a period of about 3 years, we put together a land package which is about 80,000 hectares, primarily north of Mulatos gold mine of Alamos, La India from Agnico, and to the east. We can see on this slide the Dolores mine of Pan American. So we can see the Mariana concession is the largest block, which covers about 75 kilometers on strike and 20 kilometers in width. But today, I think we will focus on the Chunibas property, which we can see on the left of this slide. Chunibas is located about 7 kilometers to the northwest of the town of Sayaripa, which is about 4,000 people, has all the amenities that we need for our field crews. We are still acquiring properties in this area, but trying to be very strict on the quality of what they are, primarily gold. The Chunibas property is one that our company purchased 2 years ago. We have 100% ownership. Initially, it was thought to be low sulfidation epithermal. Our crews in the last short period of time, we feel it's an intrusive hosted gold system. Primarily shear structures, quartz, carbonate, pyrite alteration. And these shear structures we can see on the slide, on the right-hand side of the slide, are not typical veins, if you will. They're really shears, and it's difficult to see where the gold mineralization is. The majority of these shears are in structural corridors of various orientations. Most of the higher grade gold, which is 10 to 15 grams per ton gold, occurs in approximately 2 meters. However, the brecciation out in the wall rock can be 10 to 40 meters wide of plus gram material. Most of it's oxidized for as far as we can see, although there was some drilling done on the property 20 years ago. And from the information that we have gathered from that group, there is sulfide shows up not too far down, albeit we don't know exactly how far down. So what does all this mean from a growth perspective for San Marco? On this slide, the orange is the intrusive. It's a monzonite porphyry intrusive. And we can see the structural orientation of the red lines, and these are all the shears that we saw on the last slide that are totally oxidized. It's really difficult to define exactly where they are. The key here, there's 2 things. One is grade. And if we look at various areas on here, which is the pointer here, we can see up in the north area here, there's grades up to 48 grams, 18.5. Similar areas, 18 grams. So to us, the old-time Gambesinos pits, Santa Fe, Santa Rosa, Argentina pit, the old-timers mined high-grade material. They're still mining there. And from what we gather, they're in around 15 grams of what they're mining and higher. So the property has grade, serious grade in my opinion. The other important thing with an intrusive hosted system, gold system like this, these shares are in a variety of orientations, not just in one area. So they cross, and we can see a multitude of orientations. So what does that mean? That means that at the intersections of these shares, there appears to be significant brecciation where the gold has gone out to a minimum of 10, 15, 20 meters into the wall rock. There's a thin veneer of gravels and alluvium on this property, so we can only map where there's exposure. One thing that we do know is some of the historic drill holes, and we can see that most of the holes they're mineralized from surface, but going through the actual assay sheets, every drill hole is mineralized from the collar to the bottom. I don't know why they were collared where they were or how they drilled it, but what we do know is that the gold is from top to bottom in these drill holes. And there are, we can see in ARG1, there's some 22.9 meters of a couple of grams. Also ARG8, 42 meters of a gram. And from what we can see, additional drilling is definitely going to add to this system. One of the things that is ongoing, can't seem to get this to go to the next slide here. There it is. Okay, I better move along here fairly quickly. We are starting a very large property-wide soil grid. All the dots on this map are all the plus 700 soil samples that we're doing. Subsequent to preparation for this presentation, we've discovered additional mineralization to the west, to the left on this slide, and we'll be adding to this program. So from a news flow perspective, I expect we'll have additional news coming out very shortly on expanding this. So this project is open all directions at depth, and will expand to the west, definitely. So this is a significant project for San Marco. I'd like to move on to the partnership that San Marco signed with Globe Trotters earlier on this year. And what we have done is we have signed a 3-year lease, if you will, for the proprietary information that Globe Trotters has created to identify large alteration systems, but allow us to be very definitive in the field and where we go to investigate them. So it is proprietary, so exactly how it works is Globe Trotters information, but we do know it does work. So our program with Globe Trotters is for the entire state of Sonora, and we started off with around 1,400 targets in the entire state. We've narrowed that down to about 60 at this point in time. And it really allows us to go to the field and vector into the very, very specific alteration types. Not just alteration, but alteration types. It's very low cost. And so far, we have been very successful in the first couple of months. We've identified 2 porphyry systems. Very, very typical zonation of alteration. We've identified 1 high sulfidation system with very typical quartz alunite alteration and vuggy silica, and detailed mapping is ongoing on all of these as we speak. I'm going to move on to target 1068. This is one that is especially interesting to me. It's one that's in the Laramide age plutonic rocks. It's got the very typical halo and zone potassic alteration surrounded by phyllic, by propylitic. There is evidence in the last month of copper, chalcopyrite, and chalcocite with some moly. So our crews are back in the field as we speak, and there'll be news coming from that property as well. So in summary, what does all this mean? I think that we have an opportunity in San Marco to advance our current discoveries, if you will, of the porphyry systems, and we can guarantee that not all of these projects are going to be mines. We have a very, very strict crib sheet, if you will, that we need to check off very specific minerals that these projects need to have. If they don't, they get kicked over the cliff in a flaming ball. So we're not falling in love with all of these projects. We'll be very, very strict in what we move forward. We will be continuing this generative program for the foreseeable future. We are funded for it. We will definitely be looking for partners. We've been approached by a couple of groups already to investigate partnerships. And I think that with Chunibas, which is a much more advanced property, that we expect to, well, we do have the ejido or surface right approvals. We expect to have the SMN approval for drilling before the end of the year, and I expect that there will be drilling commencing on Chunibas in Q1 2017. I had to go through this very quickly. We do have a few other very interesting targets, but in summary, we will have our generative program ongoing. Chunibas is ongoing, and I think we'll have news flow for the foreseeable future. In summary, I'd like to thank Eric Coffin and John Kaiser for their recent summaries of our company. And one thing to note, I know that Eric has mentioned it about warrants in San Marco. We've had a voluntary warrant exercise program that's been going on by our shareholders, and in excess of half of our warrants have been exercised over the last 3 months, and bringing in about $700,000 to the company. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue for us going forward. On that note, I'd like to say thank you, and we'll be at the table out in the foyer if anybody requires any additional information. Thank you.